Welcome. This is Multifamily Roadmaps Low Money Down Deal Breakdown, where I'm going to go over a listed property. It's a multifamily property that was listed recently, and just kind of go through the normal numbers for it, and then just kind of show an example of what kind of no money down or low money down you can negotiate to kind of make a deal work that might not look like a deal on the surface. So let's dig into this thing. All righty. Like I said, this is the low money down deal breakdown. My name is John Castle. Let's run through this thing. All right. So the deal overview. I got some pictures here for you of just the main building. It's one big building, and then if you can see in the bottom right there, there's like this little blue building that was another additional unit. There's parking between the two, but it's a 4 unit property in High Spire, PA. So I would say it's a more of like a C class area. It's not a there's parts at High Spire and this property specifically. It's not in a rough area where you'd be worried to walk at night or anything like that. But it's a little on the middle to lower income side, more the working class. I would say it's listed at $239,900. Like I mentioned before, there's 4 units, so 3 1-bedroom units, one efficiency unit. Um, it lists on the property that there's a coin operated laundry there. But as you can see further, I'm not sure if they're using it or they just didn't, include that in their numbers. So we'll kind of touch on that. And it has natural gas heat. So it's good, big brick property, 3 units in this big building here. And then like one extra unit in that smaller offshoot building with a little bit of parking as well. So the outside, from the pictures from the outside, it looks like it's in decent shape. Um, and then let's check out some of the inside. So here's a couple of pictures. It's generally most of the units were about the same. So not, you know, fairly decent rental units. So middle of the road, I'd say they're not rough looking. They're not like, top of the line, but they're clean. Flooring looks nice. Kitchens don't look too bad. So you could definitely, your plan for this one could definitely just be to grab it. Don't do a whole lot to it. No big renovations. Just get the rents up a little bit. So when going through the property, all the leases expire in 2022 from end of August, I think was one of them. Another one in October, and then the other two at the end of the year, they were in yearly leases. So you'd want to check on that just to see if are they going to month, which is probably what you'd want. With some of these rents being low, if you're trying to get the rents up, you'd want it month to month. So if you need to evict anybody, you can, or increase the rents. You don't have to wait another year. So if this was one where you could get in touch with the seller, just confirm that, hey, they're not signing yearly leases with the tenants. A lot of the sellers, if they're going to sell like this, they'll transition them to month if they can anyway, just to make it easier to sell. So they're not selling a multifamily with a bunch of tenants locked in, where the new owner can't change anything. So we'll go through the rents quickly. Unit one, 725. So this was the highest one. Looks like it's the closest to kind of where you'd almost expect it for the area. 1 bedroom. They pay electric, trash, and water. Um, Unit two, 650. Another 1 bedroom. They pay electric, gas, and water. So I'm not sure why the first tenant. It says they don't pay gas, but there was no gas expense there. So that'd be one thing you'd want to check on. Um, Unless maybe this is that small offshoot unit, um, to where it's only electric heat. So then there is no gas bill, which would make sense with the numbers that the owner gives. Unit three, 650 as well. Another 1 bedroom, pays electric, gas, and water. And then unit four is the efficiency. So or studio apartment, however you want to look at it. No technically bedroom in it and pays electric, gas, and water. So these are the owner provided details. When you're looking at some of these properties that are listed, this is actually more detail than you get from a lot of properties. Um, so even the fact that they have it broken down like this, and even give you some of the utility expenses and insurance expense and taxes, is a big plus. Because the less stuff that you have to kind of guess on, or worried about estimating, the better. But the one thing I did notice, missing some of the calculations, they don't have vacancy on here. It's always good to include some sort of vacancy rate because one, you're always going to have some vacancies. People are going to be moving out. So you can really mess up your numbers if you don't um, incorporate that into your analysis. I usually do 8 to 10% of the income that you collected. So here, if they're projecting to collect 25 a month in income, it'd be 10% of that. So $252 a month. Um, if I did the mental math correctly, that you'd be budgeting each month for vacancy. There's no property management. I assume since the owner down here lists the owner does the lawn care and snow removal, they probably manage it themselves. But you'll want to have a property management company for any of the units you acquire. I highly recommend it, just because it allows you to focus on the important things like acquiring new properties and raising money for properties. You don't want to be stuck getting calls late at night. It's worth the 8 to 10% or whatever you're going to budget for that, for another company to handle that, unless this is 100% your full-time job. If you have a side job or a main W2 job, it's gonna be hard to manage yourself. So I recommend budgeting for property management, which they left off. They left off maintenance, which is obviously self-explanatory. Maintenance and repairs, they have no list there. And even if they didn't do any repairs last month, if you're acquiring the property, you want to do a budget, some sort of budget for maintenance each year. The lawn and snow here, they did list it, but they said the owner does it, which that doesn't help you unless the old owner is going to stay on and do it for free for you as well. So you got to budget some cost for that since they have zero there. They also left off money for capital expenditures. Capital expenditures is a budget item that you definitely want to include, and that's any big ticket stuff. So HVAC, roof, if there's parking lot that you're gonna have to repave, any of those big ticket items that you want to save for years in advance, so that when that big bill comes due, you have money saved up for it. That's not listed. And then, like I said earlier, they listed in the listing about laundry, coin operated laundry, but they don't have any laundry income listed on here. So I don't know if they forgot to put it on or they accidentally put the coin operated laundry in. But if there is, that could be a good way you could add some extra income down the road. Either add another unit, or actually add that if they're not charging for it, and just providing like a laundry room or whatever. You could put another unit in there, and just have it either card or coin operated to get some additional income. Oh. Yep. So let's break down the numbers on this. Let me see. I use my basic cash flow calculator that I provide for you, to break this down. So, like I said, 446 Second Street, High Spire, 239,000. So for the financing, we'll just run through it at the traditional route. If you're going to get a 30-year mortgage, let's say 5.5% rates are kind of high now, and then 75% loan to value. So you'd be getting a loan for 75% of that 240 basically, and you'd be responsible for the other 25,000. So I have the rents here that he listed. I went on rentometer.com, looked up one bedrooms, and the median for the area is about $775. Average is 800. So I always like to budget semi-conservatively. So I put down what they could potentially be: 775 for the one bedrooms, and then 625 for the efficiency, because 500 is really low, even if it is an efficiency. But I couldn't quite find great data. It's hard to find great data on studio and efficiencies because there's just not a ton in the area, or not a ton of those units usually in specific areas. So there is some good potential there, as you'll see later, in getting the rents up over time, and these are expected rents that I would think you could get with the current renovation. So you're not doing big renovations. Maybe if you did renovations, you could get these up higher to the, 850, 75 percentile over here is 862. So you could probably get these to, 850, 900 if you did some really nice renovations, did a big value add plan. So then, like I said, you want to put in some vacancy. I traditionally do 10%, because I like for that to include Usually management companies will charge you a fee uh, for the first month's rent. So that'll kind of go into that. Or if you're paying them to turn the unit, clean it, and everything like that, you'll kind of want to budget a little higher there. So that kind of gets roped into those costs instead of breaking it out as another budget line. And then I used their expenses that they had. So for taxes, I entered 6,777, which is pretty high. Insurance seemed reasonable to me. Property management, I put in 10%. Generally, for smaller multifamilies around where I'm investing in PA and stuff, it's usually 8 to 10% of the income that the property management company will charge you, and then usually first month's rent. So I like to do 10% just to be a little extra conservative. And for maintenance, like I said, they didn't budget for it, so I'm doing $600 per unit for the 4 units. Just because they look like they're in decent shape, doesn't look like they got a ton of deferred maintenance from the pictures. So kind of budget on the lower end of 600 per unit. CapEx or capital expenditures, I also budgeted 300 per unit. It's usually I do anywhere from 200 to 400 if I'm not taking the time to just break down. The roof has 7 years left. It's going to cost me 10 grand to repair. What does that cost? What should I be budgeting each month? So it's in 7 years. I have 10 grand saved up. You can do it that way. But for a quick analysis, it's easier to just do a couple hundred per unit. So you're accounting for that. And then contract services like lawn and snow and any pests, maybe if this unit needs it. Traditionally that's about $400 is what I've found for my multis around this area. And that gives you a good kind of budget there. And then other miscellaneous expenses, some areas require, um, you know, borough fees or just fees for maybe switching the electric or switching stuff into your name. It's good to just have a little extra there. And then the expenses down here for utilities, like I said, he didn't include any gas or electric expense. So assuming the tenants are covering all of the heating, which is pretty much normal. And then you got 1,140 for water, sewer 3,210, and then trash 912. And then I highlighted the three: taxes, maintenance, and sewer. Your big chunks of expenses for this property. Taxes are always going to be probably your number one. Maintenance will always be a high one, and utilities are usually pretty high. Sewer's a decently high one. Water's and trash is usually pretty cheap, but that's where a bulk, of all your expenses are going to be coming. So I pulled all that information from the stuff they provided, estimated, property management, capex, maintenance, contract services, and then any miscellaneous costs. And then if you go to the next tab, this will put out all the information for you. So like I said here, I circled here. It's there's no laundry income, so there could be an additional income here under other income that you'd put in if you do get the coin operated laundry working. So it takes the total rental income here. So you're looking at right now, you got 30,300 from what they're currently getting. You take the 10% vacancy off of that, and your gross income comes into 27,270. Here's all your expenses off that we just kind of listed, and then that gives you total expenses of almost 20,000, and your expense ratio, which is basically including all the expenses plus vacancy as an expense, that your expenses are running 75% of the income that you're collecting. So that is extremely high. Usually for smaller multifamilies, you'll be looking at maybe 45 to 55% is a kind of normal range. So if you ever see that, either the rents are significantly lower than they should be, causing you to bring in less income per your expenses, or you got a couple expense items that are either being mismanaged or too high that you could maybe fix and get lower. So always keep an eye on expense ratio. Have that calculated in this calculator for you to kind of give you an idea. But if you look up here, if you do get to those new potential rents without, a huge renovation or not really any renovations needed, you can add up almost $4,600 a year in income. So, but when you calculate net operating income, you take the income minus the total expenses, gives you 7,400. The mortgage, for if you would have paid 239,000, and 75,000 or 75% mortgage for 30 years, you're looking at 12,000 plus in mortgage expenses a year. So that gives you a negative cash flow of almost $5,000 if you bought it as is, purchase price that's listed. And then basically, so you're getting a negative $5,000, or you'd have to pay $5,000 to keep this property running a year, basically, out of your pocket. And you'd be putting 65,000 almost into the property with closing and then the $25,000 down payment. So it obviously doesn't work at this price. You can kind of tell that when you see a listing like this, and there's a bunch of those vacancy, property management, maintenance, capex, all those are left off the expense list. It's going to look good from the numbers they gave, but it's likely going to be a loser in the long run, and likely vastly overpriced. So an option for lower no money down on this one. The chance that this guy gets this price on the property is pretty low, unless he gets it by somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, just because it's losing money each month at that price, especially with the rates as they are. If the rates were maybe at 3%, maybe you're breaking even at this one. But maybe you can, since they're likely not to be able to sell, but they want that high price, maybe you can get them close to that price, kind of negotiate, say, hey, we'll get you close to the 239 that you needed, even though it is overpriced. If you can give me 0% down, 3 years, and $500 interest only payments. It's kind of similar to what I had done on a 5 unit property. We did put some money down, but we were able to give them the higher value than it deserved, in order to get cheaper payments. And if you just tell them, hey, that's 3 years, 2 or 3 years, structure it, then you get all your money, you get your payoff. So you would basically kind of do the process of getting those rents up, maybe improving the property a little bit, getting it running better, and then just refinance to pay him off at that 3 year mark. But let's say you do that, you can negotiate that, hey, we're going to give you the higher price, just need good payment terms, and we won't put a whole bunch down, but we're going to take care of the property, put some money into the property. Let's say you have $5,000 invested and that's it, then just for closing costs. The NOI from above obviously was 7,400. Mortgage now with the $500 payments times 12, you got a yearly interest only payment of $6,000. That gives you a cash flow of 1,400. So you're making, making all your payments. You're able to make a little extra money on the back end, and maybe even more than that if you don't need to use up all your maintenance and everything like that you budgeted, or you have no turnover. Maybe that's a couple $1,000s instead of 1,400. But just by these numbers, then you're getting an ROI on your money of 29,000. And then at 3 years, you just slowly bump rents. Price of the property goes up in value through natural appreciation, through you increasing the NOI, the bottom line, through rent increases. And even in 3 years, the rent prices might be up from 775 to maybe you're getting 825 in that market for those general things. So that would be a way to take a deal that maybe if you just buy it traditionally, it doesn't make sense at 239. Maybe you even have to pay 150, 160 for it to work under normal mortgage terms of putting 25% down. If you can negotiate seller financing, you can be a win for them. They get basically 3 years of free payments at $6,000. So they're going to, in the end, they'll get the 225 when you either sell or refinance the property. They'll get their full amount, 225, plus 3 years of $6,000 interest only payments, because that wasn't paying down their principal at all. So they get another 18 on top. They end up with 243 over that 3 years. So they get higher than they wanted anyway in total. And they win, you win, you get a good return on your money. You get to get a deal that wasn't likely to happen at that price, and was likely to sit on the market. So that's kind of how you'd negotiate a low, no money down deal. There's plenty of other ways you could do it. Get in with a little bit less money as well. Maybe lower that price from 225. But if the seller's kind of set on a high 200, or at least 200, maybe 220, 240, and not willing to negotiate there, you can change some of the terms and get them into lower down payment and better payments. So that was just using the cash flow calculator. If you wanted to do a deeper dive on like value and adding rents through renovations and increasing rents to the higher amounts and doing a real value add project on this, um, I'm going to include the my simplified refinance calculator that projects that out a couple years. It'll give you an IRR. It takes the renovations into account as well, so that could be included. So if it was a deal that you wanted to pursue further, you could really do a deep dive on it. But this is kind of a surface level, just cash flow, year one return on investment perspective on the deal. So that's how you turn some a bad deal into something that could be potentially lucrative and give you a good ROI on your money. All right. Well, thank you for joining me on the analysis. That ends it there.